Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third webinar in collaboration with Low Carbon Building Technologies Gateway and Kickstart Online. This webinar today would be about fast floor and meeting the regulation for party floor, which will be presented by myself, Dr. Lena Prokofieva from Edinburgh Napier University, and Dave Cleverly from Intelligent Food Systems. For those of you who did not attend the previous webinars or doesn't know too much about our Carbon Building Technologies Gateway, I will briefly tell a few words about it. This project has started on 1st of July 2010 and is going for 3 years and 4 months. So the ending period is till October 2013. So the targets for the project were set up quite high. We're supposed to reach 1,000 organizations through webinars, seminars and conferences, and create 20 supply chain partnerships and do at least 40 research projects. We also have targets of assessing 300 products and create 80 CAD product animations and develop the links between these products and the real size markets and going to full-scale installation like Innovation Park or real houses. So we provide expertise in acoustic structure, energy, innovation, design and sustainability. This particular webinar today is going to be about acoustics, but it's also going to be showing you a few, quite a substantial number, let's say, of animations which we create through LCBT Gateway to just demonstrate how it works and how it looks like. So currently we reached, at the end of 2012, we reached the target of 260 products being assessed, which is about 87% of our project considered completed. Other targets are also quite high on achievement, and as I said already, we're doing testing of assessing the products and testing the prototypes, and also trying to help the companies to get the way on the market, which separates our project into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is for testing prototypes and phase 2 for installation in real size houses. So this particular project we're going to be talking today about, it is passed through the phase 1 of our LCBT Gateway project. And it's at the door of getting to phase 2 to go to the real houses, of which Dave from IWS will say a few more words. So the breakdown of the products assessed is shown on the screen, and we will be talking about acoustics today and our acoustic product. And now I'm passing the microphone to Dave from Intelligent Food Systems to talk about the company.
Thank you. IWS was established in 2010 to develop innovative solutions to ever more challenging regulations and changing industry requirements. Our view is that we need to deliver more solutions that are acceptable today. We are looking to the future to develop innovative solutions that will ensure our partners are one step ahead of regulatory drivers and market demands. These solutions will optimize the full structure through integrated design and improve on-site efficiency and building performance without drastically altering our customers' manufacturing operations or construction process. IWS, alongside our customers, identify market requirements and potential solutions, and then coordinate integrated research with our supply chain partners. IWS has a unique, wholly owned setup dedicated to delivering innovative timber solutions to the construction industry. IWS and sister company, Glenalmond Timber, import quality raw materials direct to the Perth Quay facility, where GTC currently processes about 70,000 metre cubes of timber annually. This minimises haulage and ensures a high quality of base product. IWS's sister company, BPAC Limited, is a UKS accredited test facility that enables IWS to fast track our research and development and improve the performance of our advanced building systems. Our wholly owned Milner Associates division are heavily involved in our innovative new product development program and provide chartered structural engineer and fire consultancy to many of the leading timber framers and commercial clients. We have developed a superior system that successfully addresses fire, acoustic, structural and thermal requirements, IWS FAST. IWS FAST systems will instantly improve speed, efficiency and performance at little or no commercial penalty. We are dedicated to our IWS solutions being built in, providing our customers with a unique competitive advantage through our invisible systems. These systems include engineered floors, advanced wall systems, panelised roofs and fire protection systems for timber frame during construction. Low Carbon Business Technology Gateway has been a key partner to IWS in its research and development program. Solutions developed in partnership include our intermediate floor, which meets new challenging Scottish regulations without the requirement for insulation or resilient bar systems. The first practical timber separating floor for use with masonry construction, and a single leaf separating wall which meets rigorous acoustic requirements and provides an instant fire barrier. They have also assisted on IWS development of the first fire protection system for timber frame during construction, which played a key part in the development of the HSE endorsed UK TFA's fire guidance. Edinburgh Napier continued to be instrumental in IWS's development through product innovation and marketing opportunities, facilitating meetings with industry partners and key influencers and developing dynamic animations to demonstrate the benefits of the fast timber floor for masonry construction. LCBTG Gateway and Edinburgh Napier have helped us develop holistic solutions which address new fire, acoustic, structural and thermal requirements. Helena?
Okay, now it's time to show you a little bit of how the project worked and what results we achieved when we supported Fast Floor project. So let's start from the beginning when we met with our IWS company to discuss this Fast Floor project. We had the aim set by both sides, LCBTG Gateway and the company, on develop the first practical timber floor solution for masonry construction. It's a very interesting product as such, because if you think of masonry constructions, usually they go with concrete floors, but IWS had this target of creating the new timber floor to help the development of the houses of this format. So we put some quite high targets to achieve with that construction. Wanted to test this floor and make sure that the floor will achieve Part E regulations for England and Wales. Also get some, at least potentially 3 credits. Of course, the best is 4 credits for cost sustainable homes. Then achieve the Section 5 noise for Scotland, which is the new regulations set up in Scotland from 2010. Also see how it will correspond with requirements of Section 7 of sustainability, if we can achieve gold level or silver level or bronze level with this construction, and also to see if it's going to be compliable with robust details entry. Again, robust details entry could be for England and Wales, or could be for Scotland. The requirements are slightly different for both of them, and we wanted to assess this new prototype floor for all of these regulations. Meeting the fire, structural and thermal requirements was also expected. Fire issue and structural issues were covered by IWS themselves, and thermal requirements were added at the top of that. So if as you can see, the regulations for England and Wales are very different, or quite substantially different from what we have in Scotland. But they are tested slightly differently, and different figures need to be achieved. That's why all of these regulations were listed at the beginning of the project as achievable targets. For England and Wales, for airborne performance of the floor, need to achieve 45 DNTW plus CTR. When for Scotland, for airborne noise, you need to achieve 56 of DNTW. The the numbers are so different. So you can actually ask a question of how on earth you can achieve those two things at the same time. But quite oftenly, if you achieve the Scottish regulation, there is almost a guarantee to achieve English one. So that's why we're not worried about that much. But for impact performance, it's exactly the same parameter, but the two different figures to achieve: 62 for England and Wales, or 56 for Scotland. As you can see, or as you know, the LNTW for impact, the lower is the better performance. So the English regulations are actually much lower requirement than it is for Scotland. So if you look into these regulations, you will see that the aim of the project was quite high. So masonry supported timber floor was, the prototype was developed, made, and then tested in the laboratory, in BPAC laboratory at Glen Rosses. Testing of floor construction came through 5 phases for this first approach, and LCBT Gateway sponsored this project through Spirit Internal Fund. We paid for all the testing in the laboratory and for renting out the laboratory floor and everything, just to make sure that we get the product tested the way the company wants it. At the moment, we will be showing you an animation of the airborne test. For those of you who don't come across airborne testing very often, it's going to be maybe a little bit educational for those who've seen airborne tests before, just to refresh your memory of how it's working. This animation is created by LCBT Gateway specialist, animation specialist, and it's all computerized programs. So you can see the laboratory building, masonry building, and on your right hand side on the screen you'll see a little piece of timber floor installed in the masonry. That's what we were testing. Airborne measurements work as you put the speaker in one room and measure the level of noise in that room. Then microphone will move next door, and again with the same speaker on, measurements are done in another room. So then the difference between those two levels is counted and also quantified using the reverberation time to make sure that you're achieving the NTW. CTR is actually another coefficient measured simultaneously, so you just need to subtract it. At the moment on the screen you can see the typical graph of level difference which you achieve from such test. Then at the moment on the screen you see the reverberation time, measurements going on. Again, the microphone and the speaker are in the same room. Speaker does the impulse blast, and microphone measures the decay of the noise in the room when between the speaker switches off, and all the noise actually decline up to 60 decibels. That's a graph of typical reverberation time measured inside the reasonably small room. I think it's 42 cubic meters room in the laboratory, and then the calculation is done to measure what is exactly the NTW or the NTW plus CTR in that room. So this kind of test was conducted between room below and room above of the timber floor construction. Just the speakers were on the ground floor because you don't really want to measure of vibration of the floor added into airborne. Then another test was set to do the impact test, impact measurement of level in the room below the proposed floor installed. So I will show you similar animation, but showing the impact floor testing. Okay, It's again a courtesy of LCBT Gateway project done as part of our collaboration. So here you can see the completely timber structure, just for to make it a little bit different from the first one. And impact is measured between the vertically adjacent rooms again. However, in this case, we're using the tapping machine, which is on the top, and this tapping machine, we'll just enlarge it a little bit, has 5 hammers which hit the floor with certain periodics, and the microphone in the room below measures that. Whilst the tapping machine is working, we measure it in 4 positions, and then again average it across the whole 4 positions, apply reverberation time into it to make sure that we're removing all the decay effects in the room, and the level is then compared with the regulations. So that's our 4 positions taken. Then we put this, of course, yeah, we also measure the background noise, which was shown there, and the level is, that's a typical graph of the impact level measured with background, and then we do the reverberation time very similar way as it was done for airborne. And so here we got the results. So I will show you the results of the test, but I first show a quick graph of what exactly have been tested. So that's the drawing of the floor which we tested under this project. So the depth of the floor at the phase 5 was 509 millimeters between the top layer of the floor and the bottom layer of the ceiling. It contains some insulation and sorry, screen gone blank, I believe. Something happened here, but I hope it will come. Yeah, it comes back again. Sorry about it, I just clicked the wrong button. Yeah, here we're coming. Apologize for that. We go back to the floor. Thank you very much. Thanks, Craig, for sorting it out. I just clicked the wrong button. So the different floor layouts were trialed during this test, and also different insulation and different ceiling layouts. And at the end, we received some graphs from the testing. That's an average performance of different tests. For phase 5, the 509 millimeter floor tested, and as you can see, the laboratory results show that we got the NTW at 63 and the NTW plus CTR of 51 and impact of 47. The graphs look very usual for me. They should look standard, but the most important was to compare it with regulations which we were trying to assess. So for part E, which we expect to have 45 decibel and 62 LNTW, we got the quite high spec of 51 and 47. Then for cost-sustainable homes, we achieved 3 credits. Again, because of interval CTR 50, that's for 3 credits, we've got 51, perfect. Then for our robust details, again, we achieved the level which is required for RD candidate, which is slightly different for RD application, but it's a good result to start the robust detail application for the company if they wish to do so. Then for Scotland, we achieved 56 for the NTW, at least 56 for the NTW and the LNTW. So it passes quite easily section 5.1. Then for sustainability level, we've got here gold level, which is plus 4 decibel on the NTW and minus 4 decibel for LNTW. And then for robust detail candidate in Scotland, again, we achieved everything which is required to start the process for robust details if the company wishes to do so. with those data. However, of course, you need to trial these floors on site before you can confirm that the performance is as such most of the times, let's say that. Okay, so then we met again with the company, and we discussed the results, and the results were very promising and everything. Everybody was happy with that. But the question was raised by the company owner, Cullen, who is not here with us, but he's too busy. The question he raised was, actually, this floor is overachieving all those regulations. Can we do something with that floor and reduce maybe its depth, or make it shallower, or change some of the characteristics of the floor, maybe the floor lining or ceiling lining, to get the shallow floor but perform as good as the deep floor. As you can see, when you're building the house and the floor depth is 500 between each floor, you kind of limited with the height of how high the building can go, just because of the width of the floors restricting you to build, above a certain level. Especially when the houses are built nowadays, when it's in the city, for example, and the house needs to match the height of the house next to it, you kind of limit it with the height, and architects know that mostly, I think, what kind of problems could the deep floor create. So we said, fantastic, we can definitely work out the next phases, and we did 6 to 9, so another 4 stages of tests in the same BPAC laboratory, also sponsored through our project, to see what we can reduce in this construction, how we can amend it to make sure that we achieve the performance, not the same, but almost as good as the previous floor, and see what is required for that. First of all, the partnership was created with IWS leading it, but different companies, Knauf Insulation, ICOPAL, H&H, Pre-Seal Boards, and Agar all participate in the development of this floor, providing their materials. So this partnership is now owned by Intelligent Food Systems, but it was created and facilitated by LCBT Gateway. As you remember in my first slide when I was talking about the project, one of the outputs we require was creating partnerships. So that's an example of the partnerships being created. But the partnership is created not for the benefit of LCBT Gateway project, but for the benefit of the company. So this partnership was created to develop a new construction of the floor. I'm not going to be talking through the layers, because that's not that much of information to share. But anyway, the original design was 509 millimeters. We managed to reduce it almost 100 millimeters, getting into 402, which replaced the floor and narrowed the gap between the top joist and bottom joist, and then tested this thoroughly in laboratory conditions again. I'm not going to be showing you animations of how we tested it. I'll go straight to the results. So the results showing on the screen, again, it's a graph achieved from the measurements for both airborne and impact, airborne on the left-hand side and impact on the right-hand side. And the NTW of 62 and the NTW plus CTR of 55 was measured for airborne, and impact of 55. Let's see how it's corresponding to the regulations which we were trying to achieve. So for England and Wales, again, the NTW CTR requirement is 45 and LNTW is 62. We achieved those. Again, overachieved, but as you can see, the NTW plus CTR 45 is quite a low number, very easy to achieve. Then for cost sustainable homes, we're still achieving 3 credits with this floor, so it's good for England. And as you probably know, that in England they built most of the masonry houses. There are much less masonry houses built here in Scotland. For a robust GTS candidate for England, again we achieve the levels of performance required with this shallow floor. So you don't need to go for 500 millimeter floor if you want to go for robust detail candidate or code sustainable homes, you can easily get it with a shallower floor of 402 millimeters. Then go to Scotland. We achieved the section 5.1 regulations of DNTW 56 and LNTW 56. But as you can see, our LNTW is just 1 decibel below the requirement, which is the higher is the worse, the lower is the better. So we still achieve it, but we just achieve it. And if you go on site, on the real site, and a little bit of error from a workmanship, you are on the balance. So it's kind of a shaky ground, but again, it needs to be tested on site thoroughly before it can go any further. Then for section 7, we're still achieving one of the levels, which is bronze level. I don't know if it's worth pointing out that section 7 sustainability is not a requirement, it's a recommendation to achieve, but we still get bronze there. And we are not achieving actually the robust detail candidate for Scotland anymore because of the level is set for robust detail in Scotland too high. But we spoke to the company and the company was okay with it. Now I'm getting back to Dave, and we will be showing you another animation which demonstrates the product development process, and Dave will talk you through this.
Thank you. Here we see the fast floor being created and the cassette floor within a factory. The process, as you see, could quite easily be replicated on site if you're using a stick build method. Here we see the main components to create the floor. The first thing we'll see is the joists. As you'll see, they've all been engineered, they've got end details, they've got notches already cut in. To these joists we add the head binders. This will help keep the frame rigid in itself. Then we're adding or stapling the Knopf insulation into place. This is done throughout the frame. When the insulation process is completed, we then put strong backs that are into the notches on the joist so it's all level, and we glue and nail Egger chipboard into position to create the top part of the frame. Using the same sort of processes for the second stage of it, again we have notched joists. There's notches underneath, all the strong backs go in to keep the frame rigid. These are all nailed into position. Now we bring the initial cassette and set it on top of the second one, and this time we screw through the strong backs to make one cassette. The cassette can be stacked and transported easily, it's rigid, and taken to site. Usual building methods can be used. The panels can just be craned into position. Icopal wall cap is put on all of the masonry walls. Now the cassettes or the panels are craned into position. Now, subject to the span, we may be clear spanning over the walls, but if it's a long run or a long span, it's quite easy for us to incorporate steel beams with the end details that we're able to put onto the joists. That when the steel is put into position, our end details will allow us to feed into the steel beam without the use of the hangers. The animation there briefly showed from below with the screws that we'd put in, that once they're removed, the bottom part of the cassette will sit down, gives you the 402mm depth, and the bottom section then forms the suspended ceiling, giving you the overall floor. When it's on site, you're going to install your internal walls, and then you put a final layer of acoustic chipboard into those walls, and that's the floor finished. The IWS development program is a moving feast and will be dictated to by our customers' requirements and changing industry requirements, but we'll always be staying one step ahead of the competition. Our immediate projects with LCBTG are to finalise the fast floor for masonry by trialling it on site and taking it through the robust detail approval process. If anybody has sites where they wish to consider trialling the fast floor, please let me know and we'll be in touch. Additionally, IWS are currently testing the fast floor in a timber frame environment, as we believe that the acoustic properties to make it Scotland's first timber floor to be robust detail approved. Thank you, Eleanor.
Okay, that concludes our presentation. I know we are a bit early, but it gives us a chance of maybe starting to ask you questions and start answering them. Whilst we're waiting for the first questions to come in, I would like to ask Dave a few questions about this fantastic development. Although you probably think I know the answers already because we worked with IWS on this construction, I still want to hear a few comments on it. So you're saying that you're planning to test it on site. Do you have any sites in mind already, or is it still open?
It's still open. We've spoken to some contractors with the view to maybe nursing homes, those type of large-scale constructions. But as yet, we don't actually have a site to run with at the moment, and that's an open invitation to anybody out there who'd like to get involved and see the product being used. Okay,
thank you. So you mentioned the nursing homes. It means that these floor constructions could go into non-residential as well as residential.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. And if the project's caught early enough as well, there's a cost saving to be had. On the larger projects, there's normally a concrete slab type floor that's being used, and the compressive loads are quite high. If the project's caught early enough, the compressive loads will be lower down the walls, and in theory, you can start your cost savings from the footings up. The whole process can save money.
Good. We have a question from one of our listeners. Can we work through the layers of the construction? Do you want to go through it?
When the finished floor is quite easy to break down. Reading from the top down, the very top layer is an acoustic chipboard that's on the top, an Egger chipboard. Underneath we have 2 layers of chipboard glued or nailed directly to the timber joists. The timber joists are super dried timber. We've been using 45 by 245 with our unique 3 chemical treatment process. The chemicals are fire retardant, moisture repellent and a preservative. The top section is a bottom hung detail, and then the suspended ceiling, or the second part of the cassette you saw being made, is top hung. So when we decouple it, you have the 2 connection details. That nib or the horn detail that it's supported on usually is the height of a briquette. There's no cutting of blocks in there. It's easy for the bricklayers to infill those areas. Then underneath it's plasterboard. The strong backs we had on the lower section that keep it rigid can also be used for picking up the plasterboard. That's your total construction of 402 mil.
Okay, did you test these floors for fire, I believe, and can you tell us about does it achieve the regulations?
It's achieving the regulation. That's why we have the unique chemical mix. Timber products still need a preservative to protect it. It has a moisture repellent because it will be exposed to the elements for a brief time in the construction process. But then we have the 3rd chemical, which is the fire retardant, which will stop the fire taking hold. It's a unique chemical that if a fire is to start, it heats, and there's a chemical in there that will burst. It's like little bubbles that will burst and kill the fire off before it gets started.
Another question I've got for you. Can you tell me a little bit about the timber which you're using for this product? Is it imported timber, and if it is, did you ever think of using the local timber for this construction?
No, it's imported Scandinavian timber that we use. It's graded timber that we bring into, as I said earlier, into the facility in Perth. We actually deconstruct it. We take out any pieces that we may not be happy with. It's also graded through the moisture meter, Anything over 14% will be rejected, so it really is super dried. After this, because we've created a number of smaller pieces, we then take it back into the facility where it goes through a finger jointer. So if we want a 245 finished piece of timber, we may be finger jointing 250, and then it's planed back down to its normal size. So we have very, very straight, very stiff, super dried timber that we produce in 12-meter lengths, which then makes it very versatile.
Okay, there is a question from one of our viewers. What is the internal insulation used in the floor? We did mention it during the animation, but can you talk a little bit more about it? And can it be adjusted with put in different insulation with higher rating to get better performance for Scottish regs or Scottish RD detail?
The regs we're working to are the Scottish regs, and we've been using the Knauf space blanket. That's the one we've tested with. I can't really comment on other installations at the moment until we know what properties and what brands would be considered. But we can certainly, if somebody wants to come and make a suggestion of the one they'd prefer to use, we can certainly have a look and get our internal engineers to give you an opinion on that.
Mm-hmm. From the university side, I would like to add that yes, the different insulations with a higher rating could be used, but it definitely needs to be looked into and maybe prototype tested before it goes into the product. However, it's a reasonably simple process of doing it to test another floor when we have the original construction. And yes, at the moment, the deeper floor, as we call it, the 509mm floor, achieving all the requirements. However, if anybody wants to go for the shallow floor but higher rating, that could be tested and amended to the needs. Okay, we're still catching up on the questions. So, Dave, I think there's another question for you here. What is a first floor for timber, which you were mentioning as the future work? What is it standing for? Is it just using the same floor construction to be used in timber? And what are the problems, or what are the tips, to look at for this construction?
It would be the same timber because it's our solution, which is a fast solution. So we're always using our super dried treated timber. Timber frame, it hasn't been fully tested with yet at the moment, so that's a slight delay in going forward there. The reason for going for the mason industry first is once we've solved the structural element, there's other added on benefits as well. People with a concrete slab floor, they have the challenges then of putting services within that. It can be very messy, it can be time consuming to actually maybe chase services into a floor. The timber, if we have the plans in advance of the project, we're able to actually engineer holes in. We can make allowances for soil vent pipes, HVAC pipes. We can engineer that and plate them in, put the holes in. Failing that, if services are to be added later on, it's certainly a lot quicker and easier and less messy to work with the timber joists and to install the services that way. That's why the masonry was the target audience first. The timber frame, most things are open and services are easier installed anyway. But testing's ongoing and the product will work very well in that environment.
Okay, from acoustic point of view, again, I can add to this that the main challenge which masonry or concrete floor has is to achieve the impact regulations, especially for Scotland when it's supposed to be 56 LNTW. However, I did in my testing life tested the masonry walls with concrete floors, which not even achieving 62 LNTW for England and Wales for different reasons. For example, there is some sort of acoustic bridge between the wall and the floor. Say the concrete is laid in the wet weather and then the screed poured on the top, and it links heavily the wall with the floor, which creates actually a big problem of getting this remediated, make it perform as good as it is. When this timber floor is definitely easier because the timber floor itself with a separated ceiling, almost like independent ceiling construction, it's easy to achieve the impact regulations. I also wanted to say that the main challenge with timber floor and timber walls is, of course, the weight of the timber construction. With masonry walls, you're getting benefit of the heavy masonry walls. There is less airborne losses through the walls as such. With timber construction, you need to look into maybe making the walls a little bit heavier. However, there is a question about the U value here, for what U value was achieved on separate floor. I'm not passing that to Dave because I know the answer. Obviously, I can tell you that U values were estimated for this construction, although I don't have it in hand what exactly it was achieved. We estimated it through SAP. However, to measure the real U value of the floor construction, you have to build it on site and stick the probes to the construction before you actually get the real value for it. We haven't done it because it's not tested on site yet. However, we have this option through LCBT Gateway to do so. We have people and we have probes and we have ability to do so. As soon as the first site trials are going ahead, if we have the opportunity, we definitely will measure the U value. Next question is, it's about Milner Associates. It's a partnering company with IWS, and the question is it owned by a subsidiary of IWS, or if it's a recent development? Can you, Dave, answer that?
Very brief answer, I'm afraid. As far as I'm aware of, yes. I've never asked the question myself, so as far as I'm aware of, the answer is yes to that.
And I have to say that Milner Associates were always, for my opinion, and every time we worked with Intelligent Wood Systems, we worked with Milner Associates at the same time. I never actually heard anything separated from them. Another question coming in: how does the proposal cope with progressive collapse issues? How do you protect the intermediate steel beams from fire? It's actually probably two questions in one, isn't it?
Yes.
So one is about progressive collapse issues, disproportional collapse, I think it's called.
Yeah. Well, certainly with multi-story as well on the bigger jobs, each job is individually assessed by our engineers, Milner Associates. I'm not sure what coating we actually put on the steel beams. We've been working heavily on the fire protection for the timber element. I have to be honest, I don't have the answer on the protection on the steel beams myself. Each job though, certainly the multi-story construction and on the timber frame projects as well, everyone's assessed and we will come up with designs to cope with the disproportionate collapse.
Okay, thank you. And another question which I have again, I was mentioning several times the robust details candidate for this floor. Is IWS planning to go for robust details for this construction?
Yes, all processes are in hand.
Okay, is it going to be for England and Wales only, or you will be doing it for Scotland as well? Or you will wait for the timber floor, for timber systems?
That's the idea. We'll get the timber floor solution and then we'll go for them.
Okay, thank you. It's getting 1:15 at the moment, and don't think we're having any more questions, unless you, Dave, want to speak about anything else on the top of what we said?
The only thing I'd like to add, it would be nice for people on the back of today's seminar to maybe contact us and maybe we can give a little bit more information. Maybe somebody would like to see some samples of the products. We've spoken about quite a few products within the overall floor makeup. If people would like to see more information or see the products or find more out about the fire treatment or the super dried timber, please give me a call and I'll be more than happy to call round and go through the product with people.
Okay. I think we will wrap up here. It's early finish, but it's a good thing because everybody could have lunches, and I would like to thank Dave for coming today, and I would like to thank Kickstart Online team to giving us this opportunity to speak at those webinars and to be able to contact with you. And also, if there are any other webinars we will come into